Hello, everyone, and welcome to CareersTalk. I'm Suran Sharma, an Agile consultant from the Netherlands, and today we are going to talk about Scrum Master questions that were asked as HSBC, shared by our WhatsApp group member. And to help us with the answers, we have invited Viktor, who is based in London, UK. Now, about Viktor, he is a PSM3 certified Agile coach working at major bank in London, UK. And friends, before we start, if you are new here, please subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of valuable content for you. And if you find this session useful, please smash that like button. And with this, let's get started. So let me welcome Victor. Victor, thank you for joining us today. Victor, over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Sunan, for inviting me. Yeah, I really like the idea of your channel. And when I was preparing for the leap in my career and the change in my career from software engineering, I was really searching for resources like this. So I'm glad to be a part of your journey, and hopefully people will find it really useful.
I'm sure. Okay. So if you allow, shall we start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the first question is that if, let's say, an ABC organization has several Scrum teams working on a interconnected components of the same product. So how would you help these teams to work together effectively to ensure a smooth integration and the successful delivery? Victor?
So I think that the most important bit, we definitely need to start with a single backlog. The whole idea of teams, when they only start their transformation journey or they only start their Scrum setup, etc., they tend to create a backlog, which is a backlog for this team, backlog for that team, backlog for third team, etc., which is not exactly right, because when you have separated backlogs, you don't really understand what's going on in the team nearby, especially if you're working in a really close collaboration and you're working on something that is super tight to each other. So what I would say is definitely start with a single backlog. It means that the high level items, let's say you have epics and then you have your features, then epics should be definitely visible for everyone, and it should be definitely an understanding for all teams what's going on there. The second bit is probably you need to make sure that all your teams understand what they are doing. They understand what is the product goal, what is this vision, what is the strategy. It's obviously on different level, but it's really important to have this thread which is going through all the work they are doing, because otherwise, again, you can end up in a situation when each team is delivering a feature which is totally unconnected with the feature from the other team, and then you just end up with situations that, yes, it's the same product, it's actually connected, but designs are different, or integration is different, or they're just doubling the same work over and over. So yes, make sure people actually understand what they are building. The next bit, what I would do is, because it's really important that backlog and product goal is established before you even start what you are doing, because without understanding what the end state, you won't be able to progress much. The second bit is, when you've established your teams, to make sure that you have clear roles and responsibilities. I know that it's a trend at the moment to get rid of Scrum Masters. It's a trend to get rid of program managers. It's more of an engineering manager-led team, for example, when engineers are in charge of everything. But in this case, it doesn't matter. It's more about who is responsible for what. Yes, the whole team is responsible for the delivery of product, but at the end, there still should be someone who is more comfortable with specific stuff. For example, you have a bunch of metrics, and you agree that this team member is just looking at the metrics every week and make sure that we are constantly progressing. Or, for example, we have external dependencies, and we know that you need to speak to the team which is located, let's say, in India. So someone is just naturally, really loves to wake up in the morning, and you make sure that this is just the cool responsibility that they can do because they are most suitable for doing this. So it's really important that every person in the team clearly understands not only their main responsibility, for example, either it's backend, frontend, QE, etc., but also some specific project-related item you would like to share with them. The next one is, we need to establish our cadence. We need to establish our meetings. Of course, there are stuff that is prescribed in Scrum. We have our dailies, we have planning, retrospective, refinement. But the most important, when we speak about the cross-team collaboration, it's also in Scrum Guide. It's implemented in all of the scaling frameworks as well is a Scrum of Scrums, because this is the one and probably the second important meeting after the daily Scrum, where when teams are able to highlight issues, when teams are able actually to scrum on the issue and try to find a solution together. And moreover, even if everything is going smoothly and team believe that they don't have any blockers, by the fact that on this meeting, all the work is visible across the teams. For example, I can see that Sunand is doing something that I don't believe is totally correct. So I can call it out and say that, hey, Sunand, do you mind if I take a look and maybe I can have a better idea? Or do you want to pair program with me? So it's really important that you start exchanging conversation in a formal manner. So Scrum of Scrums would be point number 3 in my journey of setting up the team of fixing the problem if it's already existing. The first one I would say is share tools and documentation. Obviously, it's hard to find a team who doesn't use GitHub at the moment, who doesn't use Jira, who doesn't use Confluence. But sometimes people really forget about this stuff, how to use it really efficient. For example, I totally don't get it when people create Jira, but they use Jira, only for all the clean stuff, only polished stuff. They put stories only when they are sure the story is absolutely clear. They, move tickets from status to status only during the daily. Jira is your working document. Yes, we want some level of hygiene just to make sure that we can collect the data effectively, that we can show to our stakeholders, that we can understand the progress. But it's most about the tools that you actually use them for your advantage. So no matter what you're using, is it Jira, Asana, GitHub, whatever, make sure that you're using it with all the actual data. You've made a change, put it there. You have a new idea, put it there. You think that customer want this idea, put it there. Hypothesis, whatever. Just make sure that all information is visible for everyone at any point of time. And the last one is obviously retrospectives. So as you remember, the Scrum and empiricism is built on 3 pillars: it's transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So while we are doing our transparency through single backlog, responsibilities through shared tools, we're doing our inspections through Scrum of Scrums, it's really important to adapt. And the only way to find how to adapt is actually come up with some actions after the retrospectives. So I think for this particular case, I would go with 5 main points just to summarize. So we really need to understand what we are building. So the product goal is really important, and single backlogs. We really need to familiarize ourselves who's responsible for what. So roles and responsibilities. And again, I really want to stress here out, no matter whether you have a formal Scrum structure of the team, or you try to create something more, let's say, googly, that you have a program manager or engineering manager and everything is built around them, it doesn't matter. It's still, there should be clear roles and responsibilities, how to act and who's responsible for what. Scrum of Scrums for working, for make sure that everyone understands what's going on nearby. Share tools and responsibilities, tools and documentation. So at all point in time, we actually know what's going on and we have access to all the valid and current information, and retrospectives, just to make sure that we actually, trying to get better.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for that elaborated answer, Victor. I really appreciate the way you have, jotted all these 5 points. So wonderful. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay. So the next question is, let's say if you are a Scrum Master and you have your Scrum teams in different locations. So how would you work, or how would you coordinate a release across all these teams to make sure that particular product is launched on time and within that given quality? Yeah, Victor.
That's interesting that we focus here on release, and this is probably really important because I think that we are kind of getting there with all the, hybrid stuff. I think it's almost 4 years past COVID, so we all used to Zoom and Teams and stuff, but we're still probably not as much aligned to how we deliver stuff if we are located really in a distributed manner. So obviously, transparency, inspection, adaptation again. So let's make sure we actually understand what we are releasing. So I would say unified release plan and some sort of structure when you're releasing. I understand that probably not every team is capable to deliver every 2 weeks, or not every team is able to deliver the artifact on some basis. But I think it really helps when a release is at specific point in time in specific days. So every 2 weeks, every month, whatever, it actually helps to, to get familiar, and you just remember in your head that, oh, it's Monday, we release Friday, and it's always the same. So by Wednesday, we need to test everything, etc., etc. So let's say that release plan should be really in place, and ideally that it's again is understandable for everyone. So we find in my team at the moment, we use a really nice Confluence page, and Jira is really good in terms of creating all the information. So we have the table with all the releases. This table, they have checklists in terms of whether this is front end, back end, something for our internal colleagues. And no matter where you're located, you can open it and see that 10 a.m. we're delivering this stuff with this team, which is located there, which is totally fine. Again, effective communication. So because release is a really crucial part of it. And I would say it's really important, in addition to your typical Scrum of Scrum, to have a conversation about release itself, because, stuff happens. For example, I know that most of the major corporations that organizations or whatever who are really significant for certain country may freeze their releases in between of something super significant. For example, for the Super Bowl in the US, they won't do releases for any marketplace or for any advertisement, or if there is an election, some banking system or television, they won't release. Just in case something goes wrong, they need to be able to provide the value for the customer. So it's really important to have this additional layer just for the releases, so that we focus only on releases on this meeting. Obviously, time zone management. Make sure you understand how many times it takes for your shifts to change. Don't forget about the time zone. I know that, for example, India does not change their clock, so it's I think it's 4.5 hours in summer and five and a half hours in
Correct.
winter for the UK, or
Correct.
something like this. So yeah, really these things are important. It's almost like the problem of the millennium. Everyone was so scared that, when the clock goes to 2000, something goes wrong. So we need to remember that this stuff happens, and it's really small and sounds like, how could I possibly skip this one? But unless it happens, you'll then understand that it could have happened. Obviously, as soon as you try to automate as much as possible your processes, you will not be reliant on where your team is located. So as much automation you can implement, more pipelines you can implement, it will just get easier. So try to push there. I know this is a general trend at the moment to do lots of DevOps practices, lots of continuous integration practices. So this is obviously a good one. Yes, it is tough. Yes, sometimes it's extremely difficult to build a resilient architecture and resilient pipelines. But yeah, just remember that if it's automated, then you don't really care where people are located for that one. Documentation is probably not an advice specific for this case, but in general, it's good to have a documentation. Many people try to this line in Agile Manifesto that oh my goodness, I forgot the line about the documentation. Customer collaboration over documentation, I believe. Yeah, I think so. So the whole idea of this line, and people say, oh, we don't need documentation, we are agile, and we collaborate with the customers. It's not exactly like this. It's like we are more interested in collaborating with customers, but we still need to remember about documentation. So make sure that when you especially people are distributed and people not sitting in the same room, all your procedures are all your procedures are implemented. I would say it's really important to have a dedicated team who is responsible for incidents. So some kind of shifts are important. You can do a 1 week, 2 week, or like one day, but it's really important that the person is in context, and person is in context of the last release. In one of the places I've worked, we've implemented a release management process and incident management process. And frankly speaking, we had almost 40 engineers, and there are 54 weeks in a year. So it's pretty much one engineer is on call for 1 week, which sounds quite stressful during the week, because you need to be ready to respond to an incident if something happens, and you receive a call from your system. But if you think about it, it's just one engineer a week, and if you've done your duty, then your duty is not for an entire year. So think about this dedicated person who is responsible in a specific point of time. It really helps to ease the stance and kind of allow everyone else just rest. And again, I will use retrospectives in all my questions and all my answers, but really make sure that you understand what just happened. No matter what problem you've got, do a retrospective. Whatever easy, 5 whys, like, don't like, whatever. Even if you have a super simple conversation, you'll be able to spot these frustrations in people's heads. And if you see that something is not right, you can start to build that conversation. You can start to build this really honest and adult conversation with people that we need to change. So yeah, don't forget about retrospectives. So just to summarize, let's make sure that the plan is visible for everyone and it actually exists. Effective communication, let's have an additional cadence, meeting, chat, whatever, additional to Scrum of Scrums, just to focus on the releases. Time zones, don't forget that time zones sometimes are tricky. Automation, more you automate, less reliant you are on people and their time zones. Documentation, dedicated release management team or person who is just responsible for releases and incidents, so that the only task for them for a specific point of time is just to do this, and then they are out and someone else is taking this responsibility, because it's clearly stressful. And retrospectives, we can't get better if we don't understand what went wrong.
Wonderful, Victor. Thanks again for that elaborated answer. Okay, let's move on. This one is on estimation. So let's say if your team is struggling to estimate the work properly, correctly, and let's say they miss their sprint goals, a lot of time. So how would you help your team to improve this estimation process and set more realistic sprint commitments or goals? Victor?
So I would try to divide it in two pieces. So the first piece is when your team is new, and most likely you'll fail for sure. Like 95%, it won't be possible for you to actually understand how to estimate at the very beginning. Especially if people didn't work together, especially if the project is new, it will be just hard for them to get a grasp how to estimate. So if the team is new, you can just get familiar with the thought that for 3 months you won't be able to estimate correctly. So just get used to this thought, and your most important task is just to collect the data. Think about the metrics you would like to implement. Think about the data quality you would like to have in order to have these metrics actually valid and valuable. And after 3 months, you can actually start doing something. So yeah, this is just about the estimation bit, because you need to understand how long it takes to deliver value. When your team is kind of established and you kind of have some data, then you can start and actually understand what is your capacity and how much value you're able to deliver in a certain iteration. So obviously, let's start with some sort of relative estimation. Either it's story points or t-shirts. It's really important for you just to get this sense of how complex this piece of work, how long it will take. So don't think of story points as of some sort of a time period. It's more complex idea, but again, the relative thing here is if you spot 2 points of work and you think that this is kind of familiar to that one, so you can have this 3 items, 3 points for both of them, and in future you can kind of get this idea of, we've done this before, we know how long it takes, it's 3 points, let's move on. You definitely need to understand what the most important bits you need to know before you start work. Again, it will be much more easier when your team is established. So you need to know that, for example, you don't have automation in that repository. So you will need to write some tests, or you'll need to do some manual testing. So all these bits are really important. And as you go, as your team grow more mature, it will be much more easier for them to understand what's work is required to deliver a specific bit. So we need to capture all these requirements, and obviously let's go to definition of ready. It's basically how we understand that we can start doing this work, and how we understand that we kind of have all the information to get a sense of how long it will take us to deliver the value. And obviously, think about people. People have families, people have health, people, they get bored, and anything can happen, really. So it's really important to have buffer time. For example, for our teams, we always use 80% rule. So like for 20%, anything can happen, literally anything. For example, we had 1 week where we had 2 days in a week, we had a fire alarm test in our building, which was super strange. But those are the rules. So basically, it's like the full day of work was out because we were just not able to sit in the office, and it was way before COVID. So, we didn't know how Zoom looks like. So, yeah, I would say this. So just to summarize again, it's really important to distinguish if you just started the project or you just started the team, just give up. It's my honest opinion, obviously, but I think you won't be able to get any sensible idea in 3 months. So don't stress yourself. Your main focus should be what data we need to get in future to actually estimate properly, and how to make this data quality. So this should be your main task. When your team is more established, then think about building this knowledge about the work that you do. So let's try to implement some relative estimation techniques, agree on definition of ready, make sure that you actually understand what's inside and what are the local, what might be the local problems there. And buffer time. People are really hard creatures in terms of they are all different, and anything literally can happen, and you need to care about this one. You need to treat them as they are. They deserve the rest. They deserve to be ill. So think about the buffer time. It will really help you to communicate with your stakeholders why this happened.
Wonderful, Victor. Thank you for that distinction between the new team and the established team. Okay, let's move on. So let's say if an organization thinks that their sprints could be more efficient, so what steps would you take to find and fix that inefficiencies to boost their productivity, Victor?
So I like you say feels that they can be more efficient. So if they feel they can speak, so we start with retrospective and try to get as much information from them as possible. And ideally you'll get something there. So for example, it can be, I don't know, whatever. Our sister lab is taking seats in our room. I mean, this really affects people. If they can't sit on their, their comfortable chair near their comfortable fan, it will actually affect them. So there might be some easy wins that you can get just by having chat with the people. And obviously, if you're also a line manager, but really any leader in the team should have a regular catch-ups that are not related to the team. It's more related about the individual. It's whether it's a development goal or it's just a regular chat or just to try to understand what's going on in their personal life. This can really help. So think about easy wins that you can implement. There might be some, might be not. If there are no easy wins, then let's take on the data. Hopefully by this time you've implemented all the metrics and you can actually understand what's going on. So for example, you can see that testing takes lots of time. So let's learn some automation. Let's get a resource who is capable of automation, or let's ask our backend developer to stop for 1 week and show our manual developers how to code and how to write basic automation tests. So let's look in these kind of optimizations and make sure that these are not easy things, but if you see that there is a local problem there, let's see how we can fix it, but really be important, really be patient about the local optimizations. I'm a big fan of the idea of local optimization, and so the idea that you implement some specific change in specific place to fix specific problem, but actually later it will just slow you because it might be not valid anymore, or it just, it's too specific but affects too broad spectrum. So whenever you implement some fixes that you think will make you more efficient, make sure you come back later and really check whether it makes you efficient. But nevertheless, also, as we've been in our first question, try to reiterate whether we are still building the same stuff. Maybe you are inefficient because your main goal at the moment is to attract more customers, but you're actually developing some features for your current customers who are like top 1% spenders, and it doesn't really contribute to your value. So that is why organizations say we can be more efficient, because this is not what we are looking for at the moment. So review your backlog and make sure you're actually building the most important stuff. It can help you as well. In terms of the development speeds, look at the non-functional requirements. And this is actually non-functional requirements is something really big. Even on the PSM certifications, I think that they really focus about this because it's hard to measure. It's really hard to measure how efficient your application, or it's really hard to measure the amount of technical debt you have. So get back and try to understand what's going on. Obviously, if majority of your repositories are not covered with automation and you spend most of the time fixing bugs in those repositories, maybe you can start actually implement stuff and you'll never come back because it won't bother you. So yeah, revise the technical debt or other non-functional requirements. There might be really big opportunity there. And obviously, again, if you can do something that will eliminate the human factor from the stuff, then try to do it. So any sort of automation, testing, reporting, monitoring that you can make, create, and then just forget about it. It just works and you can, use it. Try to do it. So to summarize, let's try to get some easy wins, either retrospectives or just your human interaction with people. There might be something that's bothering them and you can really fix it quickly, or someone who can fix it. Looks at the metrics. There might be some hints there, and especially if items are stuck at specific place, or you're doing too many items at the same point, these are something that you can fix immediately. But be aware of local optimizations. You might introduce some stuff that affects too broad spectrum and actually does not help you that much. Make sure that you're implementing the really important stuff, and make sure that your backlog is prioritized and working on the most important bits at specific point in time. Revise technical debt, and try to use as much automation as possible. I'm really big on automation. I know it's hard. I know it takes time. I know it's expensive. DevOps engineers are really good engineers are really rare, but you can again try to get some easy wins and try to, for example, eliminate some simple tasks. I don't know, someone is creating a daily daily defect report. Make sure you can automate it, or someone is implementing weekly incident report. Use Dynatrace or ServiceNow, whatever. So yeah, let's try to automate stuff that really takes time, and your people can do something more even fun for them.
Great, wonderful, Victor. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. So let's say that during a critical sprint, if your two key developers take leave for some personal reasons, so how would you manage this situation to minimize the impact on the sprint goal, Victor?
Yeah, so get back to the people are not hard, complicated creatures. We all have feelings, we all have health, we have families, we have friends. So anything can happen. You need to be prepared for this one. So you should almost have like a checklist what you need to do if you can't deliver because someone is ill. So and I think that it's really easy to get this checklist. So the first one, you need to really understand what you can deliver without this person. So sit with your product owner, sit with your stakeholder, and think what is the most important bit in the sprint that you actually need to deliver, and maybe you can get rid of the rest. So reprioritize whatever in the sprint. Make sure that you actually can focus on the most important bit. Communicate with stakeholder immediately. Just say to them, there is nothing worse than, postponing this bit and building this tension, and at the end say, our developer is ill, we were not able to build. Provide them information in advance. Of course, there might be toxic relationship with stakeholders. I get it, and you try to cover stuff and hope for better. But that's your own risk. The good practice is obviously just let them know that you might be not able to deliver. So just say, blunt, and just put it in front of them. Stuff happens. Redistribute work, limit work in progress, try to swarm together on important bits. For example, if you're, I don't know, your QE engineer who is used to run tests for you, even automation tests, or doing the manual testing. These are some bits that you can get quickly, and maybe you can, do a quick learning session inside the team and actually share this responsibility, which can really help. Leverage cross-functional skills. If you reprioritize backlog and you actually understand that this piece is more important than that one, and you think that one of your developers is actually able to do this as well, then, it might be not their strongest skill, but they have some understanding, and with some bit of coaching and learning, they can get there. This is probably something that not everyone can use, but ask other teams. Hopefully, you are not the only team on the project, and you can help them. Hopefully, you're in a good relationship with them as well, and you need to be ready to give them something back later. But yeah, if there is no way to reassess sprint goals or reassess whatever you are delivering, then yeah, try to use your charm and try to use your personal connections to get some additional hands. Yeah, why not? I mean, as a leader, as a scrum master, or whatever perspective you take here, pretty much anything you can do to make your team succeed working. So yeah, don't forget that there are other people who can potentially help you. And of course, retrospective, think why this person was so important for you. And if things went really badly, think how you can minimize this risk. Maybe you need some learning sessions, or you can actually you just need more people. I mean, if everything is reliant on one stuff and everyone else is super busy already, maybe you need an additional person. It's not always a good solution to throw money on the problem, but maybe it's the case. Who knows? So yes, again, just to summarize, reassess what you can actually deliver, agree with product owner, product manager, whatever, whoever is responsible for delivery in your team, and make sure they agree with you. Communicate with stakeholders, redistribute work, and make sure you leverage all the knowledge you have in the team, and you can reallocate whatever skill they have, even if they are not the strongest one. Ask for help, whatever help you can imagine. Hopefully you've built all these connections, because you're not building the project in the vacuum. And it's like in your real life, yeah, you can be independent and strong and healthy, but you always need people to rely on. And make sure that you think afterwards how you ended up in this situation, what we can do so that in future, when one of your people is not feeling well, what you can do to minimize that reliance on them.
Wonderful, Victor. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. So this one is a little tricky. So let's say if you're working with multiple teams, and let's say one of your teams they are relying heavily on you to make different decisions. So what would you do to help the team to become more independent and make their own decisions? So yeah, Victor, I mean, sometimes people thought it's good, like people coming to them for all major decisions, but I think that's not the case with the Scrum Master. The-
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Sunand. Scrum Master is not a decision maker. It's literally a person with, it's like a minister without any authority. You kind of do stuff, you kind of influence stuff, but you can't make any decisions. And probably you need to stop at that point. And yeah, people are greedy and people love power. And if someone asks you for a decision, and you can actually influence, you'll get used to it, and you'll be really happy that people ask you and you can influence stuff. But try to, stop these behaviors as soon as possible, because this is not positive. So really, let's focus on this one. You are not a decision maker. You should not be. If you are a decision maker, then you're probably doing something wrong. I agree with you on this one. So I think it's why you are a decision maker. So how you ended up in this situation. Try to have a local introspective with yourself, speak to your manager. If you have an access to a good coach, try to use their capability as well. More in terms of, is it I who build this empire of decisions reliant on myself, or is it really organization requires me to make decision? Because if organization requires me to make decision, then we can, rely on the team to have a chat with them and let them know that this is probably not the best one because I don't have all the necessary skills, etc., etc. If you build this empire, yeah, think why it's important for you, and perhaps you can exchange this for something else, or use it in a different direction, or use it in something more positive for the team. But in terms of the organization, there are like potential different scenarios why this happens, but most likely, you have a culture of there should be someone responsible for the problem, which is totally fine and might work for organizations. But still, let's try to leverage this one and probably have a chat with everyone involved, how you can pass this responsibility to the whole team. Because first of all, if responsibility is with the whole team and something goes wrong, it's not on, it's hard for one person to get all the damage. But if there are lots of people, they can get, for example, they can get lessons, and it's lesson not only for one person, but for all of them as well. But it's really important to understand how this situation happened. So you might need to have some hard conversations with your peers and your managers about that one. There might be a situation where you just, you make decisions because you kind of like making decisions. So you need to get this point and step back. And whenever decision is needed, you're like, I don't know, what do you say? Scrum Master, one of the stances of Scrum Masters is a coach, and I don't really like this one, but naturally, Scrum Masters go to Agile coach position, and the coach bit here is for a reason, because usually you don't have answers to the questions. You have answers, and you observe because you might be able to help them, but first you try them to get to an answer, because, for example, if 7 people in the team, they're definitely more clever than you are. So step back and try to use your coaching techniques. It might be not easy, especially if you've just started, but yeah, some techniques requires lots of practice, and probably the most important one and the most hard one to master is just to stay silent. You ask a question and you just keep this uncomfortable pressure in the room. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's not uncomfortable only to you, it's uncomfortable for everyone. Remember this one. And someone will step in. So don't hesitate to step back and just say that, I'm not making decision, because this is not what we need to. Decision-making framework, you might be able to make decisions just because no one else is making decisions. So at some point you want to have it documented list, like who is making decision when. Release, this one, prioritization, this one, I don't know, team structure, this one. So if you have this stuff on the paper, then whenever decision is needed, you're like, not me, this person, please go to them. Make sure that you celebrate success, and even if you, for example, everything it goes naturally that leader is praised for their successes, and it's absolutely natural. So make sure you put this praise back to the team. So when the moment comes for someone to make a decision, they will understand that they are praised for doing the right thing, and well, they will be more easy to make stuff. And of course, as closing all our previous questions, do retrospectives and think what has happened wrong and why you've been tricked into making decision, because yeah, stuff happens. Maybe you just made a decision because you was under pressure, and you really need to understand with yourself and with the team that, you know, if it's really like super stressful situation, you're only one available, and I don't know, your incident engineer calls you because you are the only one who picked up the phone. Maybe it was the right decision that you've made, and it was actually good, but you need to understand why this happened and what is the condition for this decision to be made, so it's as a positive decision, not a negative one. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Victor, for that. Okay, let's move on. So it's regarding the skill gap. So let's say if your team, or let's say if you're one of your team member lacks some technical skills that is needed to complete an important feature. So how would you address this skill gap to ensure that feature is delivered successfully and on time, Victor?
So that would be really good to say that, you know, you should have thought about this way up front, but I suspect in this case we are already in the situation where we lack skills. So yeah, look left and right and try to find someone who can help you. For example, usually now engineers are T-shaped, and people originally are T-shaped. They are really good in something, but they might be not so good in something else, but they at least have some knowledge. So really try to get some understanding whether it's possible to implement this stuff. So yeah, try to get as much possible information where you can feel this capability inside the team. But this is an immediate action, and while you will need to do this, and you obviously need a retrospective afterwards, of course, but if this happened already, that's bad and unlucky, but you always need to think about this up front. So it's really good to have a skills matrix in the team, whatever sort you would like, I don't know, super simple, like backend, front-end queue, DevOps, scale 1 to 5, and done, or you want something super advanced with all the, you know, technologies you're using, all the frameworks you're using, all the languages you're using, and make it super advanced so that even someone is not there, you're trying to get, you know, you're trying to match skills from different people, but you really need to understand what capability you have, because whenever new project is coming, a new technology is coming, it will be easy for you to get an understanding of what are you actually capable of. So it's really important that you have some understanding of the skills of the team and some skills matrix, or whatever you would like to call it. It's really important. And yeah, as soon as you've collected all the skills, make sure you have a plan how to fill some gaps, because otherwise why would you collect this matrix, right? Yeah, so again, if stuff already happened, then look left and right and try to get some information from other people, and try to see whether you can, you know, fill gaps inside the team. But you need to think strategically, so you really need to have this overview of what are the skills in the team, and in case something happened, who can help you to fix the problem.
Wonderful, Victor. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. So let's assume that there's a scenario. Let's say if your two team members had a heated argument, and that disrupted the teamwork. So how would you manage or handle to resolve the conflict and restore the team harmony? Yeah.
So yeah, this is really important for you, that probably before you start this conversation, at least this might be wrong advice, but you really need to understand kind of your capabilities, whether you will be able to help it or not, and whether you will be able to fix this problem or not. Because in some cases, you know, you might be just not able to fix it. people might have I don't know, some political disengagement or whatever, and it's just beyond your forces. So you need to be ready for a situation when you won't be able to fix it. So think about it more pragmatically and think about it, what you need to do to make your team efficient. And because you can't fix everyone, you can't force people to like each other. So you just, your ultimate goal is to fix the conflict and let the work flow. And so yeah, just remember that you might not be able to fix all the problems, and that's absolutely fine. So I think that the typical conflict remediation pattern is you get two people together and you act as a facilitator and you let them talk. So, hey, I don't know, person A, person B, what has happened? Let's take a look. Do you understand that, this affects team, and this is because of this conversation we didn't have an opportunity to finish the sprint goal, what we can do to fix it. So it's really about the feedback to let them know what has happened, how this affected the team, and hopefully the team is mature enough for them to understand that we might have some personal disagreements, but in the broader picture, we are all aligned on the same topic, so we can get into some agreement. But of course, this is like a positive scenario. Positive scenario is when people just got into an argument, stuff got heated, people went into different parts of the building, they come together, mediated stuff. I was not right, I shouldn't have said that, blah blah blah, fixed, and everything is good. If stuff gets dirty, really make sure you stop in the positive, not in the positive, you stop in the right place. Obviously, if physical or verbal abuse or any type of harm, it should stop immediately. Yeah, really make sure that you just stop this conversation using your authority, using some common level agreements, that we are not proceeding this because we will not get into anything. But if you can't get into common ground together, then it's worth to have a conversation with them individually. Try to get more in details what has actually happened, and try to build your picture. Of course, you might be more inclined to one person or more to others, so you need to be careful here. But it's really important that if stuff can be fixed together, then you need to build a picture, get more arguments, get more evidence, and then you again get back together, present all the arguments, and say, but in the summary, we are all trying to build a product, and we need to fix this one no matter what you think. So let's try to make a remediation scenario. So yeah, I think this one is probably the biggest. Yeah, this one is probably the hardest thing to fix, because naturally most of the problems will be fixed pretty quickly, and even if it's some technical decision, you can get really to common ground. But these problems, when people just naturally do not agree with each other, or they have different power struggles, someone is interested in one and someone is in the second, these might be really hard. So you try yourself. If not, come to someone who has authority and who can bring to accountability these people. Yeah, this one is actually probably the hardest question so far, because yeah, I've been in such a situation before, and I really don't want to get back again, because that was just the power dynamics and just clash of power. Two extremely powerful people in the organization. They're like super senior with lots of budgets and money and influence and high level protection and stuff, and they were just cursing each other in the room. And you don't want to be in that situation. So that would be unlucky. So yeah, if stuff gets dirty, make sure you stop and try again with some techniques. Use your Scrum Master toolbox and try to get some leverage you can get from that.
Okay, understood, Victor. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. So let's say if some organization notice more defects in their product. So how would you use the quality matrices to find the cause of these defects, and what sort of things which we can do or to improve, this product quality over the period of time? You might have seen this kind of incidents in your experience.
Yeah, so definitely I like that you have this kind of a hint about the data quality and metrics in your question. So yeah, obviously you hopefully by that time you started to collect some data and you actually can understand what happens. You can by some really good metrics you can understand that majority of our defects comes from this service, and additionally we have a metric that shows you that this service is not automated, is not covered properly with automated testing, so you can think about this kind of stuff. But I think it's more about, I'm not trying to evade the answer. I'm more trying to say that this is probably not the Scrum Master job. Yes, we can help, we can coach, but it's more, still getting back to the people, because they build this stuff, they own this stuff, and they understand how it actually works. So on the Scrum Master perspective here is more important just to make sure that we collect the data, we use it properly, we coach people to actually use this data, because especially if something was built long time ago, we can just forget about it. Or yeah, so as a person who has this helicopter view, it's important to remind people that, why we're here and what we are trying to achieve. Yeah, so I would say it will help you to get some, for example, amount of defects per service, amount of severe defects per service, where this defect really comes in terms of the code, whether we have enough integration, whether we have enough automation testing, whether we have enough, yeah, and enough level of fixing the problems and eliminating the technical debt. So I would go from that perspective. But it's really important here that as a Scrum Master, this is not your responsibility to track these metrics. Your responsibility is to really let people know why they need these metrics and how they will help us to build the product, and moreover, like the right product. So yeah, rely on your team in what they think is really important to measure in this case.
Okay. Can I also just add 1 or 2 points over here, Victor, if you allow?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I think we also mentioned about root cause analysis. So I think if as a Scrum Master, we can help our team to find the root cause of these problems, like why these defects has been, first of all, originated, right? As you also mentioned that we can have 5 whys, or let's say fishbone diagram, or let's say failure mode and effective analysis. There are various techniques which are available. It's just like we have to group together and, we can work with our team. And then the other thing which we could have done is there is something called process mapping. So maybe we can create a detailed process map to visualize each step into the production process. And maybe, as a team, we can pinpoint where these defects are introduced in this whole steps, right? And of course, once this, we can work on this identified root cause, and then we can work on implementing the corrective action. So based on the root cause or redesign, or let's say we have to improve some processes to address all these identified issues. So this might involve change in the procedure, the material, or the equipment, or the things which we are using as a team. And on top of it, maybe some sort of training, and it might be required, as we have also covered on the technical skill part. So maybe some sort of training is also required for our team members if lack of knowledge or a skill is identified as a cause of defect. So based on those root cause analysis technique, maybe we can come up with some corrective, and preventive action plan. So these kind of things will not happen in future. Maybe, I mean, just want to add, like, maybe we can create some, monitoring thing where we can track whatever we have implemented, whether it's working or not, whether the defect rates are coming down or not. So maybe some kind of monitoring mechanism which we can also put as a team over there. So I mean, these are the few things, as you also mentioned, that retrospective is required in all the answers.
Yes,
So
the
just want
only
to,
question I didn't mention retrospective, and you got me. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, process. process mapping is a really powerful tool to actually understand in which, what goes where. So absolutely agree. Really good addition. Thank you.
Okay. Let me see if we have anything else. No, I think we are good. So yes, Victor, I think we just hit the timeline, 1 hour timeline. And yeah, I mean, there are a couple of questions which are remaining, but maybe for our next session, we'll cover those questions.
Yeah, of course. That's
Yeah, I
really
mean,
that's really interesting. Yeah, hopefully that was useful for people. Yeah, and thanks for inviting me.
yeah. So thank you for joining us today. And friends, we hope you found this session helpful and informative. So if you enjoyed this session, please like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Suran Sharma signing off. Bye bye, everyone. And thank you, Victor, one more time.
Bye
Victor,
bye. Thanks, Anand, again.
bye.